Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to another episode on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look on how to generate our first custom widget in our awesome plugin. So if you're wondering why my text editor looks slightly different and also the sidebar is slightly different, it's just because I changed from Sublime Text to Visual Studio Code from Microsoft. Yes, I know using a Microsoft product feels weird and feels kind of strange, but it's actually a pretty good text editor. I made a video on how to set it up to make it look like I have it and how to improve it in order to customize it for your own needs. So definitely check it out if you're interested. But anyway, let's continue. So the goal today is to create our custom widget, because up until now we took care of activating the custom post type manager, taxonomy manager. Now we need to activate the media widget, and we're going to create this widget in a couple of lessons. In the first lesson, the current one, we're going to focus on just setting up a really small widget, a really small class and simple class to set up the widget and have a regular widget with just a text. And then in the next lesson, we're going to take a look on how to properly integrate the media uploader and how to handle multiple widgets with the same ID. So let's take a look on how to do it. First, let's activate the media widget and let's save the changes. And you notice immediately, because of the way we created our controller, we have this widgets manager here, that it's a new page in our administration area. But in reality, we don't have to do anything here, because all the things that we will need to manage in the widgets are going to be available in the widget section. So we can remove the availability of an extra widgets manager subpage in our administration area. So let's do it. In our code editor, in the widget controller, we don't need to call the settings API or the admin callbacks or register a subpage. So this is pretty straightforward. We can remove everything. And here I already see a mistake. That's a typo. We don't need to check if the chat manager is activated, but the actual unique identifier of our widget, that it's media widget, it's activated. And you can check this thing that we defined inside the base controller, in our Inc base controller, where the full list of managers, it's set here. If the media widget, that is stands for the activate media widget checkbox, is activated, we can proceed and safely use the widget controller. Perfect. So we can remove the set subpage public function, that it's perfect. We don't need to do this thing. And also we can remove all these API calls, like we don't need to check settings API or the callbacks. So if we save our widget controller and we go back in the main area and we refresh, now the widget manager page is disappeared because we don't need it anymore. That's perfect. Now it's time to generate our widget. And if you know a little bit on how to generate a widget, you probably know, or if you don't know, but in order to generate a widget, you need to extend the WP widget class. So also the widget generation is by default managed by WordPress with object-oriented programming, which is fantastic because it totally fits our needs of coding style. So that's perfect. Let's open our folder structure, and in the API section, we can create a new folder called widgets. And because we will use the widgets API, I put the widgets folder inside the API. It makes more sense, but you can put this widgets folder wherever you are, just like you will require it included with the use and autoload. So it doesn't matter. Just remember where you put it. Inside here, we can create a new file that we can name however you want. In my case, it's going to be media widget because I want to create a media widget. So let's create a media widget.php. And inside here, we can basically copy this initial stuff. So let's copy this media widget, paste it here, but change a bit of things. So let's change the namespace from Inc instead of base. We are inside the API, and let's not use anything for now. And let's create a new empty class here that it's media widget, that is the same name of the file that we just generated, and we don't extend anything for now. Okay, perfect. Now we have this class that it's completely empty that we will use to generate our widget, to set up our widget. So let's take a look on how to create a widget. Following the WordPress documentation to use the widget API, we need to create a class that extends the WP widget. So let's say extends WP underscore widget. And we didn't define this class. This is a globally accessible class of WordPress that we can tap. But unfortunately, because we are autoloading these things with Composer Autoload, we cannot tap it globally like it was a procedural WordPress installation. So we need to tell to our class to use this WP widget class that we want to tap in our new media widget class. Perfect. Now we need to create a bunch of variables. So let's say that we need a publicly accessible variable that is the widget ID, and then the public widget name, then another public dollar widget options that by default it's an empty array, and then another empty array that is the public control options. And all these variables are default variables that WordPress uses in the widgets API to set up the widget and customize the widget as we want. We are declaring this inside the class because we will gonna set these options inside the construct, and then we will register the widget with the default options of the widget API. Perfect. Now we have these 4 variables that we're gonna use in our class. Let's generate the construct. The publicly accessible function call __ construct. We don't need to pass any parameter here. And in the construct, we can define all these variables that we declared here in our class. So first, let's start with the widgets ID. And the widgets ID in this case has to be unique because we could have, we could encounter the issue, even if we're using object-oriented programming, that a widget ID is identical declared by another plugin. So we need to be sure that we're using a unique name. I'm gonna use like alecad _ media _ widget. That is my unique ID that hopefully no one will use. The other variable is this widget _ name, and this name can be also not unique, but let's say alecad media widget, and is the name that will appear in the list of available widgets, so the user can identify what this widget is. Then we have the array of widget options, which are some predefined declarations, some predefined options of our widget that we need to pass. So let's say this $widget _ options equal to the array, and we're going to define our array with 3 attributes. The first attribute is the class name that is going to be applied to the widget itself, and the class name is going to be has to be equal to the widget ID. So we are going to have a unique class that is identical to the widget ID, and this allows us to know which class it's going to be applied to the widget, and how we can style it in our own custom CSS if we need to style it. Then we can have a description, and the description you can write whatever you want, but just to like ease of use, we can simply repeat the widget name and just leave it like that. Or you can write a custom class, like this is a media holder, media handler of whatever. And here let's put a comma, not a semicolon, sorry. And then the last parameter that I want to specify is the option to customize the selective refresh of the widget itself. And let's put it as true. It's a boolean, let's set it up as true. The selective refresh of a widget is basically we're telling to the widget whenever the user changes something like an option or parameter and saves that specific widget, the widget should refresh itself without reloading the page. So selective refreshing means that only the widget or the portion that gets updated will be refreshed, not the entire page, which is super handy. Then the last thing that we need to declare in the construct is the control options array as well. And also this array has a bunch of parameters, and you can check this stuff in the widgets API, the official documentation. The usual thing that the widgets API recommend to specify is the width and height of the widget, just to set up some pre-default boundaries so the widgets can be auto-generated with like faster settings. So let's specify the width of the widget. That usually you can put it to 400 pixels, and the height of the widget, that usually it's whatever you want, but by default let's put like 350 pixels. So this should be enough. Perfect. Now we can register our custom widget. So we can define a publicly accessible method called register, and the register method, we will start using the widgets API. First, we need to tap the construct method of our parent. And because we're extending the WP widgets, we need to tap that construct method of the WP widget. To tap that construct method, we can say, hey, tap the parent and trigger the construct of the parent. And when you trigger the construct of the parent, we can pass inside the construct all the attributes and variables that we defined in our own construct. So we can pass the widget's ID, the widget name, the widget's option, and the control options, which the construct of our parent will use to generate our widget all for us. So we pass these three variables, or two variables and two arrays that we declared before inside this method. Perfect. Wonderful. After calling the construct, we can trigger an action to initialize the widget and extend the parent class to customize the aspect of the widget. So let's say that we want to call the add action built-in method of WordPress, and we can hook it up to the widget's init moment of generation of the theme or the plugin. So whenever the widgets are getting initialized, we can call a specific unique method. And the method that I want to call, it's inside this class, so I need to pass it as an array. The first parameter of the array is the instance of this class, and the second parameter is the name of the function passed as a string. So in my case, I want to call this function widget init. So let's create that specific function, publicly accessible function called widget init. No parameters needs to be passed, and this method only does one thing: register the widget, or actually call the register widget built-in method of the WP widgets API. And to register the widget, we need to pass the instance of this class, because the instance of this class will contain all the methods necessary for the widgets to be registered. And the methods available in total are 3. And these 3 methods are widget method that takes care of generating the output of the widget in the front end for the user. The second method is the form that basically takes care of generating the widget in the administration area for our user. And the third method is update. That is the method that takes care of actually updating the information of that specific widget. So let's generate those. Before doing that, let's go back in our administration area. Let's refresh and see if we trigger any error. Nothing has been triggered, the widget is still active. If we go inside appearance, widgets, even if we are initializing the class and we declare all those variables and we're triggering the parent construct and all these shenanigans that we did, our custom widget doesn't appear here because we didn't generate the output of that specific widget. So let's do it. Let's go back here, and the first method that we need to generate is the actual generation of the widget for the front end. But before doing that, actually, I want to do the output for the administration area. So I want to take care of the form function. So let's say a publicly accessible function or method called form, and be sure to actually use this name, widget, form, and update. These are the function or the methods that these register widget with the WP widget API will look into your class in order to activate the widget. If you change the name of these 3 methods, widget, form, and update, your widget will not work. You have to respect those names. Let's continue. So as I said, I'm going to generate a super simple widget that takes care of just storing like a title or just an input field, and then in the next lesson I'm going to do the media stuff. So let's generate a variable called title, and the title, we need to check if the title is not empty, and to check whenever we have something stored in our widget and that thing has some information in it, we need to tap the instance of the widget, and every widget has its own instance. Every time we call the form, automatically the form will pass the instance of that widget that we're looking currently in the administration area. So inside this instance, this is a multidimensional array, it's an object that we can tap all the information. So if I have, for example, a title, and I say if I have an attribute inside the instance called title, of course, let's actually print this method. So if this is not empty, let's actually print this attribute. Otherwise, if it's empty, column, we can escape the underscore HTML of these translatable names. So let's say custom text or something like super simple. And here we can specify the text domain, that in my case, it's Alicat plugin. And the text domain is necessary for translation, but we're going to take care of translation stuff later in the tutorials. For now, just escape the HTML of your custom text. Perfect. Let's interrupt the script here and let's reopen it here. So we're not going to create any error. And here we can open a p tag, and inside the p tag we can create a little bit of HTML boilerplate. So let's say that we have a label 4, and inside the label 4 we can reopen, open and close the PHP tags and echo the escape attribute to clean up this thing, whatever thing we're going to pass, that is this get field ID called title. So we are using this built-in method of WordPress to say, in this instance of this widget, get the field ID of the title. We are not tapping the actual title. We're not tapping the whatever value is inside the title. We're tapping the field ID of the title. And this is important because every field ID has to be different based on the instance and based on the name of the field. I'm going to show you in the HTML how it looks, but remember, we're not passing for the content of the instance, but we're tapping the field ID of that specific content, of that specific attribute. So let's close here and say title, and let's close the label. Perfect. Continuing, let's open an input class that is a type of text. And then we can use a default class of WordPress that is wide fat. So we're going to use built-in functionality, and the ID has to be identical to the label 4. So we can print once again this get field ID of the title. And of course, if you don't want to repeat this thing, you can store this stuff into a variable that you can use it later. Actually, let's do it now. So let's title ID. Let's use this variable like this, and let's print. Let's get this, paste it here, semicolon, and let's echo the title ID, and then semicolon here. Perfect. So it's shorter, it's cleaner, and it's just one variable that it's taking care of everything, which is perfect. Now let's continue. After declaring the ID, we need to declare the name, and for the name is basically identical to the method that we're using here, get the field ID, but instead of getting the field ID, we need to get the field name. So we can change the type of method that we're calling for the instance. So escape the attribute, this instance of the plugin, get the field name of this attribute title, and then we can finally print the value. If we ever have a value, we can print the title value, or like the simple title variable. And the title variable, as we specified before, is going to be equal to the actual instance title of the instance or the custom text that we're printing. And here we're already escaping the HTML, but in the instance it's better to escape the attribute because we don't know what the user could inject or could try to inject inside our widget. So we don't want to encounter any mistake. Perfect. Let's save it. Let's go back in our administration area. Let's refresh. Our widget is not there because, of course, even if we did everything and the front end is there, or actually we're building the form for the administration area, we didn't include that widget inside the generation of the widget's controller. If we access back our widget controller, it's still empty. The register doesn't have anything because we created this media widget inside the API widgets media widget. So if we want to do it, we need to actually register or initialize this media widget. And to do it, we can do it pretty much in the same way that we're doing everything else. Every time we need to use a class and initialize it, we do it in the same way. So let's say that I want to use the inc /API /widgets class, and the media widget has this type of namespace. Actually, in the namespace, I forgot to put it in the widgets folder. That's where this class is. So it's inside inc API widgets, and the class name is media widget. So we say, hey, use this class. Now that we're using this class, we can create a new instance of this class right here. Store it into a variable, for example, media widget variable, and create a new media widget instance of the class, and then from that media widget variable, let's call the register method, our beloved register method that we're using over and over again. Let's go back in our administration area. Let's refresh, and there you go. Look what appeared here, the AliCAD widget, media widget. If we open it, of course, because we have multiple sidebar in my WordPress installation, I have multiple sidebar installed because it's the 2017 theme, comes with 3 sidebars. I have the option to put it wherever. So let's say in block sidebar, add widget. There you go. We have our title with a custom text. We can delete it or done. If we change it, like this is my custom title, and we save it, because we specified the selective refresh, we have the full refresh and the title is refreshed, but not the entire page. Of course, if we go in the home page and we scroll all the way down where that specific widget should be, we have an error because the widget class of the WP widget is not specified. So WordPress doesn't know how to render that specific widget that we just created. So let's do it right away. Let's access back our code editor, and in the media widget, here we can finally fill up the widget method. And the widget method is actually really straightforward. We need to just tell WordPress what is the structure of the widget. So let's generate a publicly accessible method called, of course, widget. We're gonna have automatically, we can tap 2 attributes, the arguments and the instance. The instance, of course, is this very own widget, and the arguments, it's an array of information of generically declared widget. So if the user customizes the look of the widget by saying that every widget before and after the HTML, they have some specific unique sections, those sections needs to be reflected inside our custom widget. So we can echo first whatever arguments it's specified in the before widget type of argument. And if you don't know anything about the widget structure, you should definitely take a look at the premium theme development series of the Sunset theme, where I basically explain how to customize the look and feel of every single widget by tapping these default arguments that we're currently using. So let's duplicate these and let's print also the after widget. So we know that automatically WordPress will apply default pre-declared classes. Here we can declare an if statement. So in the if statement, we can say that if is not empty in the same way that we did before. If the instance title attribute that is the attribute that we're customizing is not empty, that means that we can print whatever we want to print. So in our case, let's echo the arguments of the widget before the title, and this comes predefined in the WP widget class, and then we can apply a filter to safely filter our custom title and say apply the filter of every single widget title. So these are default predefined filters of a widget. A widget comes by default with a title, a description. So we can apply this default filter. We will see in the next lesson when we have the media widget that is like an extra thing, is not a default stuff. We don't have that specific filter, so we need to do something else to validate or sanitize whatever stuff the user is printing. So we can copy the instance here, we can paste it here, instance title, and right after the applied the filter, we can close it with the arguments. If we use before title here, we can use after title, and then semicolon at the end. Perfect. If we go back in our front end, we refresh. Yes, the error message disappeared, but we don't have anything here because we actually didn't update our custom widget. If we go back in our administration area and we refresh, look what happened here. We still have custom text. Even if we specify something different, we save, still custom text, because we are missing, of course, the last method, the update method. That is the method that we're telling to WordPress how to handle the information that the user sent us. So here we can do sanitization or validation or whatever. The thing that we can do super quickly and super easily is just create this publicly accessible update method. Automatically we'll receive 2 parameters. The first one is the new instance, or everything that the user has updated will be passed in this first variable. The second one is the old instance, so everything that the widget had before the user updated whatever thing. So we can compare these two instances and see what the user changed and prevent some specific functions, specific methods to trigger if the user didn't change anything, just clicked repeatedly the save button, so it's okay. So we can say that the instance variable that, of course, we are inside a method, so this is a scope variable, is not globally accessible. It's going to be identical to the old instance. And we can say that the instance title is going to be equal to a sanitize underscore text field, and this is a built-in method of WordPress to actually do what the method says, sanitize a text field. So because we're passing just a regular text field, we can sanitize it, and we need to sanitize the text field that is coming from the new instance of the attribute title. So whatever title the user wrote in the new instance of the widget, we will store it into the old instance after the sanitization, and then this method will return the new instance that we updated, or the old instance that we updated the new parameter. So we're not passing directly, as you can see, the new instance with all the information of the user. Before, we get the old instance that we know that works and it's safe, and then we update only the parameter that we want. So it doesn't matter if the user manually injects other HTML inputs or something sketchy. We are dealing only with the attributes that we want to store in this new instance and return in this new instance after sanitization. So this is super safe. If we save it, we go back in our administration area, we refresh. Now if we open here and we say test title and we save it, there you go. Now the test title was updated. We have it here. If we refresh this page, the widget is still there with the custom title that we have. And if we go back in the front end and we refresh, now we have the test title, and look what we have here, the same exact style of the 2017 theme, because we are printing dynamically the before widget and before title, and of course after widget and after title, custom tags that are defined by the very own theme that we're using. So here automatically before and after widget is printing the section with the classes, and then before and after the title is printing the H2 with the proper title, which is fantastic. So it's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can check the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!